A very warm welcome. Today's mindful cooking is starting now, and it's a delight to have Pam and Andy with us, who will be sharing their pasta recipe with us. And we will again start with a short guided meditation, and then I'm going to hand it over to you, Pam and Andy. Very much looking forward to cooking together with you all. Okay, so I invite you to arrive at your own door. Yeah. Yeah, arriving at your own door and tuning into your body right now at this moment. Whether you are standing or whether you are sitting, just noticing what's going on in yourself right now. You can close your eyes. You can leave them slightly open. And really connecting with yourself. And looking into your mind and noticing what's in your mind right now. And then also tuning into your body and noticing how is it in the body right now in this moment. And also noticing how your breath is flowing in this moment. And feeling the body as a whole, from the top of your head to the soles of your feet. And also, if you like, sensing the space above your head. And also the contact to the ground. And then also tuning into your heart and noticing how is it in the heart in this moment. And while being aware that you are in your kitchen and maybe also noticing the smells in your kitchen, in your nose. And hearing the sounds in your kitchen. Also, being aware of the other community members that are also here in this space, sharing this space together, sharing our kitchens together. And it's like being in the same kitchen and cooking together from all over the world. And with that, I'm handing it over to you, Pam and Andy, to Michigan, USA.
Let me change the name to.
Welcome, everybody.
You guide us in your cooking.
Yes. Guys, welcome. So nice to gather as a community to cook. I want to keep us in the mindfulness of the present moment that Perry just brought us to, and welcome you to our home. Welcome you to our kitchen. Welcome you to our hearts and to the present moment together. So for those of you who have not met, this is my husband, Andy, and we are going to be making our favorite pasta together for a lot of reasons. We really are meditating on the quality of nourishment and the things that nourish us deeply in life. And food certainly is something that nourishes us deeply in life, and also the food that we have come to love, in our case, through our ancestry. Andy's family is from Sicily. He has a fancy Sicilian apron. And he has some stories that he'll be sharing today about the meal we're making. It is a traditional Sicilian meal. And I did want to say that we're going to take plenty of moments to just try to be as present as we can through this process. For some of the things we're doing, we'll be moving very slowly, like chopping. For some of the things, we'll have to move more quickly, which is always a wonderful thing to transfer your presence to those mindful moments where things are moving quickly, like when we're mixing the egg. We are free to ask questions at any time throughout this. Before starting, we did want to take a look at just the materials and stuff that we're using, just so that you can feel a little bit more comfortable with the process. So we're going to start. The first thing we're going to do, I'll tell you the sequence, is we're going to make the dough. And the dough needs to rest for a half hour. So the dough will move pretty quickly. We'll put it in the refrigerator for a half hour, and then we'll begin the pesto. So for the dough, you're going to need something to mix it on and roll it out on. I used this glass cutting board because there's raw egg involved. Some people, and Patty had actually mentioned the other day, may want to mix it in a bowl. If you're going to mix it in a bowl, I'm going to give one to demonstrate. It's probably best to do it in a large bowl, like this size or larger, because when we work with the flour, we're going to be making it into like almost a volcano shape, and then we're going to be putting the raw eggs right in the center. So we need to mix that together, and we need to have enough room to knead it. So whatever works best for you. There's also two options with mixing the eggs. I just crack the eggs and put them in whole. Some people like to put them in a small bowl and mix them like scrambled eggs before they pour them in. I think what's best, whatever's best for you. Working with the eggs is certainly a very mindful experience, and today we'll be doing everything with our hands. So that's all we're going to need for that part of the dough. For pesto, we're going to need another bowl to put in our olive oil. We're going to need a cutting board to chop our herbs and
to cut the pasta. We're going to hand cut, but many of you may have made pasta in the past, and if you have a pasta cutter, that's fine. That's fine. Do whatever makes you feel more comfortable. I was taught from my grandparents who were Sicilian, and we always cut by hand, and it gives an uneven texture, which I grew up with and I really enjoy. So you feel comfortable if you want to have it. I try to make it as even as possible so that it cooks evenly, but you do as you choose.
So one last thing we're going to need is to roll out the pasta dough. We need to have a rolling pin of some sort or something. Some people can use a glass. You're going to want to flour it, anything you can put a little bit of pressure on to roll it out. And I think that's pretty much covers what we're going to need. So we're going to start just kind of coming back again, quieting, and getting ready to be grateful for this opportunity to be together, for all of the life that's coming into this moment, from everything from our ancestors to all the people that grew the food and brought it to us, to the food itself, and to this opportunity to be together. So I want to show you the flour. You can use any flour, but some people have asked about the flour we use because we shared it. Andy is allergic to wheat, not to gluten. A lot of people in the US are. We use an ancient grain called spelt. This is a white spelt flour. And we use a combination of that and another ancient grain called einkorn. And these are very high protein flours. They're more digestible flours for most people. Even people who have celiac can often tolerate them. So it's mindful of our body. So is everybody getting ready on their workstations and getting ready to give everybody just a minute to get their cutting board and to get your flour and anything that you might want.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can we use spelt flour only?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and you use all-purpose flour, whatever flour you have around the house. It should be. You may have to adjust a little bit with some of the amounts just for the texture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some grains soak up a little bit more moisture than others, so you'll have to try and do our best to show you the texture and the feel so that you get the right consistency.
Okay. Thank you.
At least even in, I think in life, but certainly in the Mediterranean, is much of it is just by look and feel. So it's very intuitive, it's very mindful. Most of our grandmothers had no recipes, they just worked the food. So that's a quality that we'll bring today as well, because we're going to need to be responding to whatever the food presents in the present moment, especially when we're mixing the eggs, but as we mix the dough in terms of consistency. So if we're all ready, I'll show you the flours and we can kind of stand, and this is the spelt flour. It's a little thicker. I don't know how well you guys can see it right now.
Sorry, Pam. I
Yes.
have a spelt flour, but I have wholemeal flour. Is this all right?
Yes, it's going to taste a little heavier, Gitti. It's going to taste a little heavier, but it's fine. Do you have a white all-purpose flour, Gitti?
Yeah.
You could mix that in. You could do like half and half if you did it, because if you use whole grains, it's a much heavier consistency. And if you're not used to that, it's not always something that people love. So if you could choose to do it all whole or mix, I'd mix at least a fourth or a half of a cup of the all-purpose flour, but I'd say you could probably even do like half and half.
Thank you.
And one other question.
Yes.
About amounts. So 3 cups of flour, that would be a lot of pasta just for the 2 of us. Can you keep
Yes.
it in the refrigerator, or can you freeze it for, a little while?
You can, or you can cut this in half. So this is a pretty delicious gift. It's nice to have it last for a few days in the refrigerator, and it tastes quite fresh. We store it uncooked. So it's lovely to have more than once. It's also lovely if you have a friend that it's not a problem with the COVID for you to drop off a little bit of pasta. They'll be a better friend after you do.
But this will make a pretty good serving for a fair amount of people. So feel free to cut the recipe in half. Or if it's just 2 of you, that would be fine.
Yes.
Or 1 even of a single serving.
We never know. We're always mindful of how much pasta people like to eat. Another mindfulness piece. Are there any more questions before we start?
about the second half. Hi, Andy and Pam.
Hey, Rose.
That second flour that you're using, what was that? The gluten.
It's called einkorn. It's EINKORN.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for doing this. Wonderful.
You're welcome. We're happy to have everybody.
And Bill is here to assist me.
So as Pam is mixing the flour, I can talk a little bit, because one of the important things when I make this dish is that I really connect not only to making the pasta and the ingredients and feeling and smelling the ingredients, but I also connect to my ancestry. And so my family is from Sicily, and my grandparents showed me how to make the pasta. So every time I make the pasta, I think back to them, and I think back to that actual moment of being in their basement and smelling the cheese hanging from the rafters, and my first moments of sticking my hands into the flour with the eggs. So it brings me back. So I have that experience with this dish, but you can use this as a mindfulness to maybe you've had a similar experience with maybe a relative of that, or a person in your life that is meaningful to you. So as we cook, I like to bring that energy, that kind of a remembrance, and also that connection to my ancestors. So that is an opportunity for you to be mindful and connecting to people who are important that you've shared food with in that way. So.
Because food is something that connects us all over the world, and brings us together. And in America, we have the blessing of so many cultures living here that many of us have grown up with many different styles of cooking from all over the world. So we're going to start with our flour.
2.5 cups.
This is for the full recipe. This is 2.5 cups of spelt. We're going to be using a 1/2 cup of the einkorn. And if we just want to get present, or maybe look at our flour, whether it's in a bowl or whether it's in a bag, and
if you need to measure it out,
this would be a good time to measure it. Maybe be thinking about, again, that these are grains that have been grown a long time, that have nourished people through many generations. They have the love and the energy of the sun. And just kind of taking in and being grateful for the flour and the substance it's going to provide. And if we want, can smell. And it's a very light scent, which is always nice, the subtle things.
that earthy smell.
And maybe taking a minute just to kind of feel it. Softness. And again, bringing forth the intention and gratitude of the nourishment that this is going to provide. And whatever you're cooking on, whether it's in a bowl or whether it's on a sheet, we can start by taking the flour either in a measuring cup or our bowl, and we can start to pour it into the middle of our bowl or the middle of our workspace. There's my spelt. Now I'm going to take a moment to pause with my einkorn as well. Smell it. Just noticing any subtle difference in smell, presence, consistency.
If you're using 2 different grains, feeling the difference. This one has a little bit more of a texture. So then the spelt is a little bit more finely ground for me.
So it's more fully bodied. And then we can add, if you have a second flour, we can add it onto our pile.
So it's 2.5. I know.
Mhm.
Yep, 2.5 and a half.
And a half.
Oh, so it is 3 in total.
Yes, it's
Three
3 in total.
Okay.
Okay.
And you very well may have leftovers. And while we're waiting, because I'm not going to be able to see, I see just enough of you, but to see how quickly everybody's moving, please don't rush. There's no rush. And in our case, we have Andy and I cooking together, so we're going to adjust our pace, but we know that some of you guys are cooking on your own. So let's do everything we can to make this as relaxing of an experience as possible. One of the things we really wanted to share was how easy this is, because this is something Andy and I can do for an everyday dinner. And sometimes people are intimidated by this level of cooking, but it's actually quite simple. And Louise had promised that if she has any bits of wisdom, that she's gonna be our guest with that. So, and anyone else as well with anything to share, because her family's from Italy and she spent a lot of time there. So I'm gonna start shaping my flour and kind of pushing it into a circle. So hopefully you guys can see me doing that okay. Again, paying attention to the texture, the shape, the feel. And then once it's in around about the size of a small dessert plate, I'm going to put my hand in the center and go straight down to the bottom of my bowl or my sheet. And then just kind of gently start pushing the flour back in the middle, kind of pinching around the outside like this, pinching and like putting your thumbs in the center, making the hole
Just
a little
making
bit
a
bigger.
hole like a volcano in the middle.
This is going to be the funnest in some ways, but also trickiest parts because, like I said, if you're on a sheet like this, the eggs are going to want to drain out, and our work is going to be to respond to what's happening and bring it back into the dough, respond and bring it back into the dough. And so we'll give everybody just a minute to get their flour ready. Stand and feel the coolness of the flour. And then we'll start with our eggs.
Okay.
Okay. So we have small to medium sized eggs. If you have larger eggs, you may want to start with 4.
Here it is.
It's going to be something we can add as we mix. So we will be adding flour as we mix, just to keep the consistency of this right. Again, it's responsive. So we're responsive to what we're seeing. We're responsive to what we're feeling. And our goal is to in that responsiveness, create the dough at the consistency that's best for this dish, which will be moist, but not too sticky. So you may want some flour for your hands once we've broken the eggs as well, and to dust
Your hands.
your hands, but also even maybe more dusting the sheet. So let's come to a place where we're with our eggs. And again, grateful to the eggs for the nourishment they're going to provide today, noting the beautiful shape of the egg. I don't know about you guys, but they're beautiful. I think they're beautiful. The feel of the egg, the fact that this egg can produce life. And we'll just be with it, holding it. And gratitude. And presence, feeling the egg. Just bringing awareness to ingredients that we don't always stop and bring awareness to.
Yeah, feeling the weight.
Feeling the weight. Also deciding if your eggs are large, whether you're going to need 4 to start or 5. Again, this is not so prescriptive that you can make a mistake that can't be corrected. That's the good news. If we have too much egg, we add more flour. It will not be a problem at all. And I think it's a good time for us to start cracking the eggs and adding them one at a time in the center. You want to crack the eggs, Andy?
Does she scramble it?
She said you can.
I'm not scrambling mine, but you can. I'm gonna do mine by hand
We'll
in
put
the
it-
middle.
As you can see, we'll just drip it right into the middle of our flour there. And just lightly crack them, open them, put them right inside.
And if you see, like on our edge here, this is a little low and it looks like it's starting to leak out, trying to leak out, just push it in. This is where we want to be responsive and paying attention to what's happening. If you're scrambling your eggs, just break them and put them in the bowl. Responding, making sure all the eggs are staying.
It's hard.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's okay if it leaks out.
Yes.
You're all gonna mix it together
Oops,
anyhow.
ours did, see? Ours has just leaked out. So in order for us to be responsive, I'm going to need to push it all back in. And now I'm going to need to start before you are because mine is leaking out. So I'm going to be pushing my eggs with my hands, kind of breaking the yolks and mixing it carefully in the flour with my hands in kind of an up and down motion.
Pam,
Yes.
just a question. I don't know if I missed it. Salt? Did you put salt?
No salt in this.
No salt. Okay.
Okay, so we will be at different stages of this because we're being responsive to our dough, mindful of our dough. First phase is the mixing, getting the eggs and the flour combined. So as you can see, I'm squeezing, I'm bringing in.
This is the very tactile part of the experience. You really can feel the wetness, the different gooiness from the eggs. Some may find this fun and really enjoyable. If you don't, experience it, sit with it and see what is it that may not feel that pleasant to you.
Where's the resistance?
Where's the resistance? And can you sink further into that?
For some of us who are older, going back to maybe days where we were children and playing with clay or Play-Doh or something that used to bring a great deal of delight. Because most kids have no problems enjoying this part of things.
It gets really messy on your hands, but that's how we like it.
Now it is very messy. And like I said, we're bringing it together. The idea is to get it together in a ball. But the other thing we need to do is we need to check in. Like I'm noticing that my dough is a little bit drier than it usually is. It's a little more crumbly. If you can see, it's crumbly and it's crumbly here. So that's my sign. Usually I play with it a bit, see if I can get it into a ball. If I get it into a pretty good moist ball, I say I have enough eggs. But because I'm getting this much crumbly, this is about over a half a cup, I'm going to ask Andy to bring me another egg. So this is where we're responsive. What are we noticing about our dough? And I'm noticing mine feels a little too dry. So I'm going to have him do that.
You want another egg?
Yes. And I'm gonna have him scramble this one because then I have a little more control over the amount that I'm going to put in. So,
I'm just going to use my fingers and kind of squish it.
And how is everybody's dough coming? How are we doing?
Mine is very crumbly still, and I have 5 eggs in there.
Okay, so then let's add another, do the same thing, hon, just
Respond.
respond
I
by
put a
getting,
half an egg in.
now, yep. Andy put a half an egg, and I'm taking that part that was crumbly, and I'm squeezing the egg in that. I'm not overly manhandling the dough because we do need to knead it, but I'm squeezing it so that it comes together. And again, just feeling how it feels. Is it dry? Is it sticky? Is it moist?
It's all right if there's a little bit of crumble on the sides. It's not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
There'll be plenty.
No water.
I think just a little more, Andy. You want it to be moist, not too sticky. That's good. And not too crumbly. Perfect.
Are we supposed to be kneading it?
Yeah, if you've gotten to the point where you have your dough moist, and if you want to focus on me, Perry and Thomas, I'll show you what my dough looks like.
That looks nice.
Can you guys see this?
Looks great.
Okay, so, and again, my hands are terrifically eggy. So it's a little sticky, but not, it's moist. That's what we're going for. So when you've gotten to a point that you feel the dough as well, Benjamin, look at my hands. Then I'm going to reflour my board a little bit. Put a dusting and spread it out. And then I'm going to begin to knead for about 5 minutes. And maybe we can knead in mostly quiet. This can be a reflective, quiet time. Just feeling, realizing what we're actually bringing in to being here. We're bringing in a meal, we're bringing in nourishment, we're bringing in noodles. So if anybody has any questions during this time, feel free to ask. And before I start kneading, I want to ask, does anybody have any questions now? Is everybody at a similar point?
Mine is still very dry. I had 4.5 eggs.
Yep, get some more eggs then.
Okay.
Maybe another egg.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. How is everybody else doing? Is everybody ready to do their kneading?
It's a thick dough, so it will be thick. It won't be a dough like for making bread. It's a thicker style dough.
Maybe we can all show our mindful hands.
Hands. There you go. Looks wonderful.
I wash my hands.
Okay. Okay, so for those of us that are ready, we're going to start mindfully again, dusting our board carefully, feeling the flour, creating the surface that we need. And then bringing the dough center stage. Hands on the dough, gratitude for the dough. And now just kneading the dough gently. Doesn't have to be strong. And if it starts to get too sticky, and you'll tell because it can start sticking a lot on your hands, even though your hands are already full of dough, you can get your hands with a little flour, or you can put just a little bit more flour on the dough. And again, the goal is to keep it moist not too dry, not too sticky, just right. I would, if you can, knead it on a surface, like I said, like we are on the sheet or in the bowl versus just in your hands. Because I think it needs a little bit of extra push and just being responsive, feeling the flow of the dough underneath your hands,
The resistance.
the resistance, the release, where it flows out, just turning it, rolling it slowly. Like that. Paying attention to the ease of your movement. Paying attention to whether it's sticking too much to your hands. Paying attention to listening to the dough and what the dough is asking of you. That looks really good, Ursula. You guys, these doughs look wonderful. Just taking a minute and being, again, gently with the dough. And I'm noticing that my hands are feeling like the dough's starting to stick a little bit. So I'm going to powder my hands a little bit more. And just resume my gentle pushing. Just gently. You can even breathe in as you bring the dough up. Breathe out as you push in. Breathe in as you pull the dough up and out as you push out. Coordinating your breathing with the kneading of the dough. Feel for any changes in consistency. If it's becoming less dry, less moist, just being with the dough.
You may notice it feels a little smoother. Moisture is being absorbed and to the grains.
And remembering we're moving slowly, mindfully. But if you are having your normal dinner preparation, of course, we always want to bring mindfulness to this. But this is actually a dish that can be made relatively quickly. We're just enjoying the essence of the whole experience right now. Pushing. Are there any questions? How is everybody doing? Any questions for us? Beautiful.
Looks great.
Gorgeous.
It shrinks.
Gorgeous.
It has, it springs back like a sponge.
Yeah.
Yes. That's true. Is anybody noticing anything that they would like to share?
Did it feel kind of like Play-Doh?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It looks great. It's perfect. So maybe we can have a dough show and tell right now, since we've spent a moment, our 5 minutes, and let's take a look at everybody's dough and see where we are. Phyllis, yours is beautiful, gorgeous, perfect. Yeah, see, this is pretty easy. That's what we want people to know. Good things can be easy sometimes.
That dough really turns it a beautiful golden color. that brownish golden color. I just, I love, so.
Yeah, it's brown rice flour and gluten-free all-purpose flour because I do have celiac. So.
Oh, okay.
That worked perfect. That's
Perfect.
great. Yes. Yay. I'm happy for you, Phyllis. I'm glad it's way. Does anybody else have any dough to show? Oh.
Yeah, so our dough is also looking good.
It's looking beautiful.
This is the one following your recipe. I also did a vegan type in parallel, which was just using semola di grano duro, just with hot water. So
Yes.
this one is without eggs, this one is with eggs, and we're gonna try and see how they both come out at the end.
That's
Oh,
lovely.
nice.
That's wonderful. What do you think, Benjamin?
It's stiff. Stiff.
Yeah, the one with the eggs, I think has a more flexible texture, right? So it's really like this Play-Doh thing from childhood, and the one without the eggs is a little bit stronger. It's a little bit. It's not that elastic. Yeah.
And that's just what we want to do, you know, this noticing. And that's what our grandparents did and great grandparents when they were cooking. They just responded. And so with yours, I mean, you're paying attention to the differences in the dough. I'd be curious to the texture, how this is going to turn out in terms of the noodle itself. Not just because of the absence of the egg, which of course will affect the taste, but so many of our cherished dishes came from just being perceptive and having fun with food. And part of mindfulness is
And
really
experimenting.
connecting to the joy.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something we can connect to the joy with. So if our dough is done, we can put it, yeah, nope, I've got
you got
this.
that.
We can put it in a bowl. And we can cover the bowl with a damp towel. And if you make dough of any kind, phyllo or breads, it's always important to cover it while it's proofing or getting ready with a damp.
Do you oil the bowl? Do you put oil?
No, mm-mm.
No.
Just can go right
You
in.
can go just in, yeah.
And then as you can see, I tuck,
Just so it doesn't dry too much.
kind of like you tuck in a baby. I lovingly tuck in the dough.
Did you say a paper towel, Pam, or like a dish towel?
I use a dish towel.
We use a dish towel just so it doesn't come apart or come apart onto the dough. But
Yeah.
if you feel comfortable using a paper towel, sure.
And-
it just has to keep dry.
Yes. And I also make points mindfully when I do this, that dyes and things sometimes leak out of towels that are varied colors. So I try to use the one with the least amount of color. I actually have some that I use for this purpose. So with that, in the refrigerator for a half hour. We'll wash our hands, tend to our work area. Ready then, we'll meet back here in just a minute and we'll get ready to start getting the oil ready for our pesto. Okay, so we'll be back in just a minute.
Did you say moist towel? Moist dish towel?
Yeah,
Yes,
a moist towel. Yeah,
moist
you want
towel.
to keep it moist. I think I said you want to keep it dry.
Yeah.
Keep it
Yeah.
moist. You want to keep it moist.
Thanks for being mindful.
And are you
Wait,
putting
Barb? Yes,
it
honey?
in the refrigerator, the dough?
Yes, for a half hour.
Okay.
Okay? Okay. Time to wash up hands.
I'm going to be using the same surface after our pesto to cut the pasta. So I'm gonna take some time and just scrape this board of mine so it's nice and clean. We'll probably use this for the pesto too, so.
I know I have some other.
Ja, ich glaube schon. Aber es ist noch wunderschön.
And as you're moving about, just be mindful of your movement. As you're walking in mindfulness, be coordinating with your breath, remembering that everything we do can be done with mindfulness and attention. So whether you're scraping your sheets, washing your hands, all of that can be done with our awareness and ease. There's no rush. We're all at different places. Some of us may still be working with our dough. Others are cleaning. Everything's just fine where we are right now. And I am totally grateful for clean hands. Men washing your hands. Hi, Patty. Anything to add? Is there any differences that we've done compared to how you do noodles?
It took a while for mine to get smooth because I did use some semolina flour and some whole wheat spelt. So I think it might have been a little, maybe that made it drier or just thicker. So maybe it seemed like though the kneading got it really smoothed it out.
Yes, it does. The kneading really smooths it out. And so, and again, through it, you can adjust the consistency. Are you happy with the consistency now?
I think so, yeah. And do you ever add a little bit of water, or if you need fluid, you just add a little bit of egg?
I have only done it adding egg, but I'm sure you can add a little water. And I think these things are awareness journeys, like how much of this flour, how much of that flour was the noodle. A lot of times, like these noodles are pretty light. They're not heavy noodles. But if I do them from whole grain, they are going to be heavy noodles. And then just the awareness of how did I like that? Is there, so it's a really lovely opportunity to just kind of exercise those little subtle things. But as long as it's moist, I think you're going to be fine. So kind of give it everybody another minute to wash up, and then we'll start getting ready to begin our oil for our pesto. Okay, so if you're waiting, maybe just breathing.
As we're waiting, if you do enjoy making your own pasta, and many of you probably have made pasta before, there's actually a really fun and interesting video series through Facebook, if you're on Facebook, called Pasta Grannies. And they go around all over the world, mostly in Italy, and they interview all these wonderful nonas that have these great recipes that they've been using for generations, and they show you how to make their versions of their pastas. So we get a great deal of enjoyment just watching these traditions and being filmed and shown. So this is a meaningful one to me just because it's a simple one that my grandparents had taught me. So I'd like to just say that in honor of them today. So thank you for joining us and learning what my grandparents had taught me. So my grandparents have a story, and here's my great grandmother's pasta pot. So at the turn of the century, she left Sicily, and they were a very poor family that they moved to the United States for trying to find a different way of life. And so the story and the legend or the myth goes is that the only thing my great grandmother brought with her was her pasta pot. So pasta was really important to the family, and I have inherited that pasta pot. So I am not totally sure that this is the exact pasta pot that my grandmother had brought with her on a boat across the ocean, but I like to think that it is. And anyway, it was her pot at one point in her life, but so it's a cherished memory, and I don't cook with it anymore, but it's an important piece to my family history, and that I like to just use it as a decoration and to think about the relationships with my family in that way.
So mindfulness of the relationship. And Andy's actually a photographer, and he's pretty creative with things. And another mindfulness he has done is other uses for the pot. And he's actually on occasion done some photo sessions where the top is used.
So what I'd like to do is take old family heirlooms, and since I have a lot of them because I've been the historian of the family, a lot of them have gotten passed down to me, but I enjoy like having the rest of my family having access to the visuals of them. So I'll take pictures of, so I'll take a picture of my nephew when he was about 3 years old, and I have him holding the pot with the top on his head. So it's just fun ways to show the family heirlooms with the other generations of people in my family. So those are just photographs that I like to share and take different heirlooms that I have received over the years and find fun ways to keep them preserved in the memories of my family. So
staying mindful of family. So if we're ready to start thinking about pesto. The first thing we're going to do is grab whatever wonderful bowl we're making our pesto in. And again, this can be adjusted. This recipe that I'm using today will probably give you a little bit of leftover, but it's hard to know because everybody likes different amounts of pesto on their pasta. So just kind of centering again, considering that we're about to bring another one dish into being. Maybe taking a breath or two and grounding, holding space for what we're doing together, mindfully cooking in our kitchens. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our olive oil. In our olive oil, smell our olive oil. In some places, fresh olive oil is so delicious. Certainly parts of southern Italy where when they dress a salad, they just dress the salad with olive oil and salt, and it would be the most delicious thing you've ever eaten.
really,
Smelling in, breathing in, maybe taking a little taste. Seeing if you can imagine the sun being soaked up in the olives. And in Southern Europe, those olive oil is their pride and joy. Many of the restaurants make their own, and they're very proud and happy to share it with you. It's something that they believe, and is absolutely true, that they're giving you a gift. We've been to places where we have just had the most exquisite experiences just sitting, like we said, having a salad or having a piece of bread, dipping it in olive oil.
with just olive oil, and the flavors that can come from different types of regions with olive oil is truly amazing. But as we go through this recipe, for the pesto is a recipe that Pam and I experienced with my family. So in 2007, we were able to travel back to the village where my family is from in Sicily called Bellestrade. It's outside of Palermo. And so when we got there, it was wonderful that we had a wonderful opportunity to meet many new family members that we didn't even know existed still. So one glorious day, we were invited to a family farm where we had my cousins make this pesto for us. So this is another offering to the family connection to this recipe.
And we'll tell you a little bit about that while we're chopping. So I normally eyeball this. I normally don't measure this, but today, just for everybody's purposes, I'm going to do it this way. So we're going to start with 2 cups of olive oil. And like I said, you may have some leftover, and you can use it on pizza. You can use it on bread.
Or feel free to cut it in half too.
Yeah, let me see how much that goes. Yeah, 2 will be about right, I think. The olive oil soaks up the herbs, and so you'll find we may even need to add some more. So just keep the olive oil out and handy. It's perfect.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Okay, because I have maybe, I mean, my bunch of parsley looks good, but my basil might not be as much as needed.
Yeah, no, that's fine, Rose.
In fact, many times we don't even put the parsley or basil in with this recipe. And when we go to Sicily, a lot of times it's just a parsley pesto, which we actually fell in love with. So that's why we wanted to share it. But a lot of people like that little hint, that spiciness of the basil. So we do typically put basil in our recipe at home.
And that speaks again to our responsiveness of just meeting what arises. And in our case, our basil was out in our car overnight, and it got quite cold because we went grocery shopping, and I went out and half of it had turned green and slimy. So in my responsiveness and mindfulness, I decided not to put green and slimy basil in our pesto. So we're going to be doing the same thing, Rose. We're going to be using a little less pesto and doing a little bit more of our basil, a little bit more focus on the parsley.
But
Would that be too much oil, Pam?
2 cups.
Too much?
So I should do 2 cups
Of olive oil.
of olive oil.
You
That's
know,
up to you. If you feel like you would like less oil and less pesto, you can do less oil too.
and you can add it as you go.
Okay.
What we're doing right now is called an infusion. And what's important to remember is that when we were first making this and being introduced to this, we were being taken around our cousin's garden. So we went and we dug up a clove of garlic. We walked some more, and we were taken to the basil, and we cut and trimmed the basil, and we had a big like colander, we put it in, and then we went to the parsley and gathered the parsley and brought it all to the table. And what's interesting is in America, they put a lot in pesto. There's like cheeses and pine nuts and all sorts of things. But in Sicily, they just go to the garden. And the first step in making the pesto as very tasty and delicious is infusing the oil with garlic. So this is where we take our clove and noticing the shape, smelling, grateful to the garlic. And depending on how much garlic you like, We use 2 pieces or 3 pieces of clove, but if you like a very garlicky pesto, you can put in 3 or 4, but it will get garlicky. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to move a little faster, not much, but just because for time's sake, we're going to peel our garlic mindfully, slowly, feeling it, smelling it. And we all know that garlic is a great healer and delicious, but a healer as well. And it's good for your heart. It's good for your blood pressure. It's been used medicinally all over the world. And so this is a mindful decision if you use 2 cloves or 3 cloves. That. And we're going to begin to cut our garlic with a knife. If you have a garlic press and you prefer a garlic press, certainly feel free to use that. Slowly, mindfully. And when we have the garlic peeled and we've spent a moment with it, we start by taking a bigger knife, laying it on top of the garlic, just giving it a little bit of a tap with the palm of our hand. Yeah. And it breaks the garlic up a little bit, releases some of its fragrance, makes it a little bit easier to chop. You're ready? And start chopping the garlic. Slowly, mindfully. Cutting it into very small pieces, mincing it. Notice that even in your movements, doesn't matter how fast or slow you're going, you can still bring your peace, mindfulness, and letting go of any worries about whether this is right or not right, because it's all right and it's going to be delicious. The nice part about this is watching everybody's different style cutting garlic. And smelling of the garlic as we cut releases its fragrance. And this is to your preference as well. Some people like chunkier pieces of garlic. Other people like it much finer. Whatever you like.
Some of you may also want to use a garlic press. That's totally fine. Many people use garlic presses instead. We have one. We definitely choose to cut it just because that's our way, but feel free to use the garlic press too.
And once you've chopped the garlic or pressed it, start to put it into the oil. The quicker you get at least even 1 clove in, the more it starts absorbing the taste of the garlic. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to just absorb, have the garlic absorbed into the oil. Another thing that we're going to be doing as we go to chop our herbs, we'll be periodically revisiting our olive oil and garlic, because once the olive oil and the garlic are in the bowl, you stir and you take the garlic pieces and you kind of smush them into the side of the bowl and just kind of give them a little wiggle so that the garlic is releasing even more of its flavor into the oil. And we're going to do this probably once every 5 minutes for the next 20 minutes or so while we're cutting our herbs. Any questions? How's everybody coming? We're doing good, good. And as you can see, yep, and Manisha, just stir it and also bring, I'm looking for my spoon, bring it to the sides, like literally take the garlic, move it to the side and kind of smush it into the side of the bowl. So it doesn't have to be a hard smush, it's just you're smushing it, releasing the garlic. Yeah, Andy's gonna hold it because normally we do this on a table. And then stir it.
Any big pieces we try to smash against the side of the bowl, just to release some of those oils that are in there.
And so in Sicily, they do this and they let it sit. So this is the magic, is really just the length of time that they let this sit and infuse. That's gorgeous. Yep, perfect.
The color of the oil is something to admire and look at. It's just beautiful. See how the light reflects. Smells. I love that garlic smell. It's just something that is brings me back to times of smelling families.
Beautiful, Giddy.
Cooking. Oh, it looks nice. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Very simple meal. This is not a complicated meal.
So we're also going to start, for those who are ready, just for time purposes, we're going to start taking a look at our herbs. So we can find a nice place for our garlic and our oil to rest. Very, very nice. And some place that's beautiful. See, this is such a visual beauty.
Yeah, very nice.
We're going to be attending to it, so please keep it close by. So we come to the time where we're going to start to take a look at chopping our herbs. And the attention we want to bring to that is most of us have had pesto. Do you love basil pesto? Use more basil and less parsley. Or do you prefer like a parsley taste, but just a little kick of the pesto? You can modify. There's no right or no wrong here. So as Rose has had to do and Andy and I have had to do, we're modifying and we're going to be having mostly a parsley pesto. And we're going to take a minute with our parsley, with both of our herbs, and again, be grateful for the herb and everything that brought it here to us. Maybe take a piece, smell it. Parsley's so delicious and refreshing. Hold it.
Yeah, fresh, that really fresh smell.
Then on a cutting board, maybe taste it.
And it's a pleasant, even though it's bitter, it has that pleasant bitterness for me.
Mm-hmm. And parsley originates in the Mediterranean, as most of us know. And in addition to being delicious, it's also another great healer. It has a lot of antibiotic properties, antiviral properties. So there's some really precious, yes, really precious parts of parsley. It cleanses the palate. So we're going to bring out our parsley onto our cutting boards.
Marion, how is your parsley tasting? What's your experience with your parsley?
I feel like I'm out in the field where it may be growing, or in the greenhouse where it may be growing. It's very intense and wonderful.
It's such a nice bunch of parsley.
Well, and you can even use parsley as an arrangement when you're having people over. I mean, sometimes people use herbs for that as well. Does anyone else want to show off their parsley?
Pam, I washed mine and I've got a bit of water in it. Is that all right?
Yes.
Yeah, just shake it a little bit out as much as you can.
And you will want to wash your parsley before you use it. So if you've not washed your parsley, now would be a very good time to wash it. There we go.
Phyllis, what about your parsley? What's your experience with the parsley?
Parsley is one of my favorite herbs because I love the freshness. It just makes me feel almost like I'm eating grass or I'm outside in the garden. So it's always one of my top choices.
But I'm glad. And I hope you like this pesto. Have you ever had a parsley pesto before?
I haven't, and I'm really excited about that because I prefer the taste of parsley to basil. So
Good. Me too. Me too.
And Thomas and Perry, let me ask you and let me ask everyone, how are we doing on timing? Because we're running a little later than we thought. Is there a hurry or can we just continue to go at this pace? We're okay.
Yeah, that's perfectly okay. Maybe one question, Pam, about the water for the pasta. Is it time now to set that up on the to get it cooked already, or do we still wait with it?
I think we can at this point wait till we cut. We're going to be bringing out and probably within the next 7 or 8 minutes our dough, and I think we can turn it on then.
Okay.
Okay. So if we're ready, those of us that are ready, we can begin taking a look at cutting our parsley. Some people use the stems. We don't. We can save them if you want and use them in salads. We pretty much we use some of the stem. But we cut very high up, so I'll show you. We cut up, there's some stem on the end, but mostly the tops of the parsley. So it's not going to be harmful at all to have a little bit because we're going to cut this very fine. And that even saying that, some people don't mind chunkier parsleys and herbs. This does not need to be minced. I tend to make mine very fine, but it can definitely be a little chunkier if you like it that way. So for those of us that are cutting, we'll just center and feel our knife in our hand. Parsley under our hands. Just start slowly chopping. Mindfully chopping till you get the parsley, the consistency that you like. For us,
We try to cut it as thin as we possibly can, really. So if you can decide on your way, but we like to mince this pretty fine.
and I start at one end of the pile and just slowly in like 1/2 inch increments cut all the way down to the other end. And once I've gotten to the other end, then I actually go to the bottom of the pile and cut my way up.
I just wanted to show, I got mine from a place where they sell eggs as well. And I have a little slug in mine.
Oh.
I
Well,
can
well,
keep this and give it to Bossy tomorrow.
that's
Yeah. So
Mhm.
the slug won't get that, but Bossy will.
But one of the mindful things that we do when we are cooking or eating is we do think about all the different life forms that went into making this meal come to my home. And, you know, from all the microbiology that microorganisms that went into creating this food, to the slugs, to the pollinators, to the farm hands that help cultivate it and bring it to the markets, the people driving, shipping the food to the market so that I can go there and purchase it. So thinking about how many hands and how many living organisms it took for this meal to get to my plate. It's probably pretty astounding. It'd probably be millions of life and living beings that took to just the right moments for this a miracle of a moment for it to show up at my door and have it here on my plate. So we can think about that as we are cutting, thanking all the beings who went into making this food.
Also paying attention to the style of your cutting. My cutting tends to get faster and more deliberate as my herbs get smaller. And some people like theirs chunkier, others like it very mushy, similar to how you would get it from a blender or a food processor. And as you cut, releases some of its fragrance and starts really transforming in front of your eyes and becoming a whole new thing. And it doesn't have to be all one size. Sometimes there's a little variant within that as well.
You want more?
We can.
Yes or no?
Yeah. And this is a good time, if you can, to pause your chopping and go over to your garlic and oil and just give it a stir for a minute. Maybe 30 seconds of just, again, bringing up the garlic and smushing it into the side of the bowl, releasing some of its fragrance, giving it a stir, and then letting it rest again, and returning to your parsley.
There's one on the rack. Blue one's on the rack.
And as I'm done slicing my parsley, I'm going to be putting it into a bowl, getting ready. Basil. Those of you who would like to see, Andy and I like ours a little chunkier. So as you can see, it's still flaky a bit. You can see the consistency. It's still a little bit flaky. So you do what's best to you. And just as we do this again, bringing our attention back. We're in activity and sometimes our attention will wander, but again, just bringing it back to this moment, our cooking. For those of you who are getting ready, I can tell you about the basil while you're finishing. The basil is from India. Hi. And the basil is also a wonderful healer. It's an anti-inflammatory, it's antibacterial, and it's used in India medicinally. Yes, it's beautiful. Manisha's got a beautiful
nice
basil. Did you grow that, Manisha?
No, I bought it.
That's
Bought it.
gorgeous. Oh my,
Looks really nice.
yes.
Ours is not looking as beautiful
Ours didn't like being outside.
in the cold.
But for those of you who are done with the parsley and want to take, oh, Patty, you've got your own plant.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's,
that makes it even more special.
yes.
When- yes.
I love it.
And you have good growing environments.
Well, this is
Sun.
yours because it's too cold right now.
Yeah.
We can grow it all summer and we get very large plants. We grow parsley and basil fresh all summer, but we've had a very hard time growing it in the house in the winter. So we have to rely, it just doesn't seem to do well. So we rely on the grocery store for this, and we're grateful for having these fresh herbs at this time of year. And for those of you just looking at our basil, seeing how different it is than the parsley, seeing how everybody's basil here is just a little bit different. Some of us are growing it, some of us have bought it, some of ours looks fresh, some of ours is wilted and unhappy because it got too cold. Smells wonderful.
Smells great though.
Smell it, taste it. Be grateful for it. And this is going to add a lot of flavor, more of a peppery flavor into our pesto. And I should say that you can do all basil, you can do all parsley, like we said, and you can do a mix to your liking. So we're going to start cutting our basil. And again, we don't use the stems in any large way in ours. We take most of the stems off. Like this. And then on the stems, if there are leaves on the stems, we can pick them off, just like Manisha's doing, and add them slowly, mindfully. Taking the leaves off, just like Manisha is. And then when you're ready, starting to chop. Slowly, mindfully. Noticing the sounds. My basil is actually crunchy. As soon as you get a moment, pausing again and returning to our oil and stirring it for about 30 seconds, pressing the garlic into the sides, stirring it. It's also a good time maybe to smell it. If you can smell any of the garlic releasing, and maybe even tasting it to see if you can taste the garlic. starting to infuse. A lot of times the garlic is a subtle flavor. It's not an overpowering flavor. And that's what we want. Stir it. And then when you're done, just let it rest. Good night, Shahrazad. And return to your chopping. Anybody have any questions?
Pam,
Yes, Andrea.
as my son has come, we during the cooking we will have some.
You just got muted, Andrea. We didn't hear the whole thing.
Your microphone muted again.
Oh, what are you having with that? I can't see it.
It's an aperitivo, very common here.
Yes.
Without alcohol.
Yes, and
the bitters.
Yeah.
We love them.
Yeah.
That's delicious.
And
That's delicious.
we drink one because Simon has come home.
Okay. Those
It's
are
a
nice.
celebration.
In Sicily, they serve those to us as well. So when we go to Sicily, that's what we get served as sun bitter. So.
And also, this is the joy of eating on our own, in relationship with ourselves, in community with each other, here with our loved ones that may join us. Food brings people together in really wonderful ways. You want to tell us about that, Andrea, and how that tastes? Do you want to tell us about that and how that tastes for people who don't know?
I like it very much, and I like very much the white one, but also the red one is good. And I have some. I could invite you if you very much.
We'll be right there.
Simon, how does it taste? Bitter. Bitter, we say in German. Like, yeah.
Yeah, bitter. Yeah. And it almost medicinal. It almost tastes like a little bit like medicine almost for me when I drink that. Yeah, like a medicine.
Good medicine.
But it's delicious. It's nice.
Well, and in the States, we don't serve a lot of bitter drinks.
No?
More sweet.
No, people drink a lot of water here, but like the pop or the soda that the other beverages, either juices or like a pop or a soda like Coca-Cola, everything's more sweet. Bitter
we
is,
don't.
no, we don't drink that, but it's interesting. There's not anything I can think of that's like a bitter here.
Yeah, here it's very common.
Yes. In Germany and in Italy?
More here in Italy and also in South Tyrol, more here than in Austria or Germany.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for sharing.
That's where my daughter lives in Portland, Maine. They have a place that makes their own bitters, like a restaurant, and they sell this, and they're just delicious. And they make drinks with those, but they also
Yes. They're getting more popular, aren't they, for like things like that? Yes, absolutely. So we have our bowl of herbs, and we have them both mixed together. So for those of you who want, can take their hands if you've mixed both your parsley and your basil, and just lightly mix them together, kind of feeling the texture coming together, two different herbs blending together to make one delicious pesto. There we go. I'm giving people just another minute. For those of you who are waiting, who are done chopping, you can stir the oil. Again, pressing the garlic and the side. This will be our final time of doing this. And this is the part that's not really prescriptive. This is the part where we add a little bit of salt now to our oil. And I would salt to taste. I would start with maybe a half a teaspoon or a fourth of a teaspoon if you do not like salt, and put it in. And then go up from there just a little bit at a time and add a little bit, stir it in very well. And then you're going to taste the oil and see how you like the salt. The herbs will neutralize the salt a bit. So, and you can always add more salt once the herbs are in. I'm going to add a little more. Stirring.
Yeah, and it's changing the feeling in the oil, right? With the hard pieces
Yes,
of the
it is.
salt, it's giving a little bit more friction, and yeah, it allows also to smash the garlic a little bit easier in the bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hear the salt kind of cracking while stirring it. Huh?
Yeah. It has a more grainy feel. You can feel it and you can hear it.
Worthwhile experimenting another time with adding the salt at the beginning as you're stirring it like this. They in Italy taught us to do it this way, but that's a good point, Tomas. And then when you are ready, we can add our greens, our herbs to the oil. And then stir, just blend, just coat them, paying attention to how they change, how they blend with the oil. How they absorb the oil. It is not a problem if your pesto is more oily, as it keeps the herbs continually absorb the oil. So if you were to keep this in your refrigerator, it can last, I would say, to about a month. And a lot of times you'll take a teaspoon of this, it's like a mother stock, and you'll put it into some fresh olive oil and stir it and dissolve it, and then use that for your pasta or pizza. Just noting the changes as we stir. At some point, taking a little taste and seeing if you like the composition of salt. You would like to add a little bit more salt.
Yeah, good. Good.
And for I put a little bit of a different spin on mine. If you have lemon, a lot of Mediterranean cooking, they use just a little squeeze of lemon. And note this, if you don't have, it's not a problem. I'm just gonna do a little squeeze of lemon. And I'm also going to do just a very little, like an eighth of a teaspoon, just a splash of white vinegar, but the lemon's fine. That adds a little bit of a pop to it. And I'm sorry we forgot to add that. It's not necessary at all, but that brings out the flavor in a little bit of a different way. So I would taste it before you do that and taste it after you do that. And if you taste it, being mindful that it's an herby flavor. It's not a flavor that's going to be center stage. This is going to be a one of three flavors: your pasta, your cheese, if you're having it, and your pesto. And this is a part that's going to make a really beautiful whole. And tasting it. If you like salt, add more salt. If you don't feel there's enough garlic and you have garlic powder or garlic salt, feel free to add that. If you'd like a little more lemon, feel free to add that. And if it tastes a little bit like grass, don't worry. Flavors will mingle. This will actually taste better the next day. The flavors will mingle together.
Pam, what's the consistency of yours at the moment?
It's,
Let me get it closer. So
yeah, let me do that.
I don't know if you can see. It's pretty thick. You don't see puddles of oil.
Yeah,
It's
a little.
pretty, maybe little slightly puddles, but it's pretty evenly dispersed amongst the oil now.
Now that said, if it's oily, that's not a problem because really it's the flavor of the oil. We're not necessarily trying to make this like a accumulation of herbs. That will all blend and your herbs will absorb it. So if it's just pretty much an olive oil dressing that's lightly peppered with the parsley and the basil, it will be fine.
It'll be fine.
It'll be delicious. That's the main part is that it's infused. And hopefully we're all at a good spot with this. Okay. And when
Pam, are we going to be able to sit down and all eat together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the pasta only takes 3 minutes to cook.
About.
So we're doing like the laborious part right now, and then we're about to shave any cheese if we would like. If you have cheese, no worries. If you don't have cheese, if you don't have cheese, no worries. If you do and would like to come to the point to where you're shaving your cheese, if it's already shaved, then you can just join us, relax for a moment. You can take just a minute and shave some cheese, or you can wait and shave cheese at the end, just freshly on top of your pasta. Okay, so we're heading into now the part where we're going to be turning on our pan as well, shaving cheese, turning on our pan. Okay. And our pan should be a pan that's large enough. Andy's going to go back. Large enough to show, you can bring it up here. So that the pasta has room to really boil. And in Italy, they salt the water strongly so that it tastes like the sea. So I would pour a whole handful of salt.
Not a whole handful, but
Yeah, and put it into the water.
Yeah.
Because that's where the flavor, that's the only salt. That's why we don't salt the pasta while we're making it. We're just gonna salt the water.
stories of my grandmother saying that her mother went down to the sea because the village is by the sea. They went down to the sea and got the pasta water straight from the Mediterranean. So that's how they would do it. And it would take the salt that was in the Mediterranean was the salt amount of salt that she would try to replicate when she came here. So
when you're ready, you can find your pan, fill it with water, salt your water, and cover the water and turn it on. And it may boil before we're ready. And if that's the case, then we'll just turn it down and keep it just below boil until we're ready for it. So let's just take a few minutes to finish chopping, finish blending. If you're grating cheese, taking a moment together, connect to your cheese, smelling your cheese, which is the strongest flavor by far so far today in smell. And then maybe tasting your cheese. We have all sorts of different cheeses here today. Andy is allergic to cow cheese, and so we are using a sheep Romano. I know Benjamin shared earlier that he had a Parmigiano. And if you're waiting and want to start grating your cheese, just taking a moment, slowly grating, mindfully grating. Watching how the cheese changes. Being aware of any fragrances that are coming off the cheese. Also knowing that cheese has a way of disappearing into the meal, and the pasta. And if you're a cheese lover, you're probably going to want to grate more cheese than you think you would need. And if you're not a cheese lover, then maybe just a little bit. Even coordinate your breath with the cheese.
And again, our cheese is pretty salty cheese.
Mm-hmm.
So you, depending on your cheese, you may adjust your pesto salt accordingly to how much cheese you may use.
Mm-hmm. Remember, you can always have your cheese, and then as you're mixing, finalizing, putting it on your pasta, if you need more, maybe save a little bit to add to the top, which is awfully nice. I see Giddy. How are you grating, Giddy? What is your grater like? I'd like to see how you're grating. Oh, lovely.
Nice.
Lovely.
So you have immediately the little dish where your cheese is.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. We'll do this for the next 2 minutes or so. Don't rush if you're behind. There's no problem. But we'll get to the point where we're going to bring out the pasta and get ready to cut it together. Maybe arranging, if you're waiting, your workstation, picking up a little bit, getting ready for the next step. Or stirring your pesto a little bit. All of these things, just giving loving attention. They're all going on at one time.
Yes, I noticed the smell in my nose from the cheese, and I hear the sounds in the kitchen, the boiling water.
Yes.
And also my posture and how my breath is flowing right now.
And that is the invitation, because in our real life, when we're off our mats and our cushions, oftentimes we're orchestrating many things at one time. So how do we bring our attention, especially when we're making a meal and we have water to boil and pesto to stir and noodles to roll and attention to pay to the smells and the heat of the steam. So this is where we get that opportunity to realize there's many things to pay attention to. And in that paying attention, that's where our mindfulness lives and helps us to connect to our broader experience. So I'm looking, I can see some of you, and it looks like everyone's in a pretty good place that I can see. it might be a really good time, again, if you're waiting to stir your pesto or to get your sheet that you're going to roll out your noodles on. Are you gonna flour this?
Mhm.
Okay. So Andy has gotten our dough out. So if you can take a moment and get your dough. That looks beautiful, giddy. And Andy's gonna talk to us about how to prepare our area. Oh, that's gorgeous. That's lovely.
So you can see that the dough hasn't maybe changed that much, but it's rested a little bit so that you can more easily work with it. So this is a big, if you've done a full recipe that we have done, you're gonna wanna divide it first because it will be too much to roll out at once. So I just lightly flour my work area. And then I will cut it into quarters. So I'll cut my dough ball right into quarters. If you did a half a recipe, you might want to just cut it in half. And then I'll take...
so if you guys can see. You can take a minute with your dough, seeing how it's changed.
Looking in the inside after you cut it, some of the air holes.
Smelling it. Smells like noodles. Not tasting it unless you eat raw egg, but we're not recommending that here. But yeah.
So while I'm rolling this out, I'll put 3 of them back in my bowl and cover them again, just so that they don't dry out.
But leave them on the table.
I can leave them out of the fridge now. So I will definitely have a bowl of flour next to me just to keep my hands dry and to keep the dough from sticking to my work area. So I just keep generously putting flour onto my workstate area. And then I'll begin slowly with my hands, floured hands, slowly just press the dough and thin it more like a pancake shape before I start rolling it out, just to try to get it even. Now, as you do this, my goal is to try to get the dough as thin as I possibly can before it starts to break. But some of you may like a thicker, heartier noodle. I do try to keep it quite thin, but everyone may choose a little different on how they want their noodles. If you make a thicker style noodle, it will take a little bit longer to cook. So you'll have to adjust the cooking time. So now I put it on my floured surface.
Show the size of it.
You can see.
Like a small pita bread,
Yeah, like a small bread. And I'll start rolling it out. And we have a roller with handles. You may have something different. And I just keep rolling it. The important part with this is to pay really close attention to an even layer. So you're going to want your dough as even as you can so that you don't have one noodle really thin and one noodle really thick. So if you need a little bit more of a patience and awareness to make sure that your dough is evenly spread as you roll it. And feel free to use more flour as you go. If it's starting to stick to the rolling pin, or if it's starting to stick to the work area, and I will flip it, brush it, keep moving it around, keep thinning it out. Working to keep the dough nice and even across the whole surface and the thickness. You can feel the resistance. Like my dough is is pretty resistant. It's not really soft. I have to work kind of hard to push it flat. And I'll try to keep it in a shape of a rectangle as much as you can. If you can, it will be easier for you to cut if it's in the shape of a rectangle. It's not necessary. Quite look like a rectangle or a square. It's okay. And just keep working it until it's as thin as you would like a noodle.
So
No, you're
Thin
doing
it out.
fine.
Might need some muscle.
Perfect.
hold for a minute. Yep, and if you can see, here we can look this up. If you want to see this a little bit, we're not done yet, but
It's getting flatter, and it takes some effort to really push it out. Your dough may be a little softer. Your dough may be a little harder than mine, depending on the type of grains and the flour you used. So I just feel the dough, and I can see and look and see that it's pretty even across. A lot of times it will get thinner on the outsides. So work to keep a nice and thin and even spread. And if you feel like it's about to break, that's your time to stop.
being aware, you're rolling, paying very close attention to the texture, the evenness.
Ja, dan ook weer voor de eten, gell?
Okay.
Pam, just a
Yes.
question. Did you before put some of the Parmesan of the cheese into the
Pesto?
pesto? Or no?
No, you can, but we don't, yes.
I have
Many
better
people-
because we do,
Yeah,
but
many-
I try it in this way. Okay.
Okay, Andrea.
Okay.
It's a little different, isn't it? Yes.
Now, another thing that I do like to do is after I have it to about the thickness, I take my hands and I feel across the whole entire dough and see if I can feel any areas where it's thicker or thinner. And you can even take your hands, and mine is pretty stretchy. And if you need to keep flouring it, flour it so it doesn't stick to your hands or to the workspace. And I can see that mine's pretty good at this point. It's not quite a rectangle, but it's close to my shape, so it's okay. So
That
now,
looks good. That looks good, Tomas.
yeah, it's coming along nice.
Just mindfully
Just
rolling.
nice and gentle.
And we can show ours if you want to. Andy can show ours done. You want to just lift it on? Or, well, on the
I don't wanna
board. No,
lift
let's
it.
lift it on the board. Okay. So that's about 15 inches long, maybe?
Yeah.
Yep, and about 8 inches across and probably 1/8 of an inch. Oh, I'm sorry, guys, I'm doing American.
We're doing.
Sorry about that, and I
Oops.
don't know, does somebody know the conversion?
It's thin.
It's thin. Probably 1.5 meters, right? Long. Sorry, guys, our metrics conversions are not as strong as we'd like them to be.
All right, so the next thing that we do,
Well, let's make sure everybody's in a good spot
Okay.
and if there's any questions. For those of us who are waiting, we can just breathe and come back to our presence. Bringing our attention into the moment. Those of us who are waiting, we can stir our pesto.
I see that Tomas is using the pizza I'm sorry, not his pizza, but his pasta cutter, which is nice. Rolling it, getting it a consistent thickness. That makes jobs really nice and easy, and consistency. Beautiful, smooth. So Benjamin's doing that. Nice, Benjamin.
Yeah, and he's doing it really mindfully.
Oh, look, he's moving it nice and slow.
Beautiful.
Really nice. All right, for us, what I like to do is flour the top of the surface, because this is a technique that I use and to make the job go a little bit quicker. So I flour the surface fairly generously. And then what I do is I find the center point, and you can even take your finger and just kind of, with the flour on the top, kind of draw a little mark with the flour in the center. Then what I'll do, I hope you can see this, flipping one end towards the center, but not going past that center line. And I'm not sure if people can see this. I'll take the top and do the same thing, but not overlapping. Not overlapping. See how I folded that? Then I'll just make sure it doesn't stick, so I'll put a little bit more flour on the top of those folded spots.
Before we go into that, if you can lend your awareness to your pan and the water and listen to hear if it's boiling. If it's boiling, you can reduce the heat, remove the lid, take it down just a bit so that it'll be ready to cook our pasta in a few minutes.
So I have a question about the folding.
Yes.
If mine is maybe a little more circular and not rectangular.
Yeah, that's fine. Perfect.
Okay, because I could fold in the sides. Both.
No, that'll be fine. This is just a technique I use to do it. Then I'll fold it in half, and I'll show you why I do this at the end. So now I fold it in half. So here's where I'll cut my pasta, and think about what thickness you want that pasta to be. So I'll cut this rope. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. When I cut, I will cut maybe a 1/2 centimeter thickness, maybe like a fettuccine style noodle, maybe that type of thickness.
Maybe open.
And the reason I fold it is because at the end, what we'll do is we'll stick our knife through the whole line of dough and just give it a wiggle, and it will fall off the knife into noodle shapes.
Mm.
So what I'll do is I'll stick the knife at the fold and just dangle it, and it will fall into noodles. Okay, so this is where you can really use that mindfulness of just cutting with mindfulness, and try to cut it in that even, consistent, whatever size and thickness. Try to keep that consistence across the whole length of your dough. So it takes some time to just cut a nice, even thickness. And sometimes I'll do this quick, but for today, since we're doing it really mindful, I'm going to try and make it beautiful by making all the noodles exactly the same size and shape.
As much as possible.
And just keep cutting.
And how much will this serve, Andy?
This one piece of dough, I would say would serve maybe 2 people. maybe 1.5, depending on how much you eat. Now some noodles, depending on the shape, if it wasn't a rectangle, it was more circular, you're going to have some noodles a little bit longer than the others, and that's not a problem. But what you do want to do is have them cut into a very consistent thickness so that they cook at the same rate. Try to keep the dough in a nice straight line. And if you want to hand pull them out, you can hand pull them out. That's fine. But what I do, and I haven't cut my whole thing yet, but if you want to see what I do with the noodles, it's halfway done and it's about the size of my knife. I just wiggle my knife in between the layers that I folded.
Into the center.
Into the center of the dough. And so I have it all on my knife and I just kind of wiggle it and take my fingers and just let it fall. Just let it fall just like that. And then I can just put it in a pile off to the side. Keep it nice and separated. You can put it in a bowl. And if you floured it enough, it won't stick together. And if there's some that still need to be separated, you just kind of give it a little wiggle and they'll fall apart. You do have to be delicate with it. And then I'll just continue cutting.
Hey, Andy, question.
Yes.
We have a drying rack here. Is there a, we're not sure what the advantage or disadvantage of drying them out is. What's the point of that? Do you know?
Well, if you're doing a different type of noodle, you could dry them out. We love the flavor of that fresh noodle. So if you want to dry them out, I don't know the details of drying out noodles that have egg in them.
Oh.
So you may want to check into that first, because we always cook it right away. We don't dry them.
So if we have leftovers, which we do, can I grab this?
Yeah. Well, let me.
So Andy's if we have leftovers, we basically just keep them in this shape very much. Andy will do the knife and he'll shake this out. And once he gets all of the strings out, we just take that off as that is. And then and then just kind of put it together like this, like a little loop at the top and then the straight bottom, and put it in a plastic bag or a Tupperware. You can even take another bunch and put the loop at the top so it looks like a figure 8. And we store it in a glass container, but we give it, and again, it can be in there for 2, 3, I probably wouldn't have it any later than 4 days, but I think 3 days is quite good. And we take this over to, like today, our son's partner in life, she is actually not feeling well, so we're going to be taking some over to them to have for dinner. And people, yes, perfect, Ursula. People really, really enjoy this gift. So we highly recommend.
So so for your point is we always cook it fresh, and whatever's left over, we put it in the refrigerator. Uncooked. And then we'll just pull it out.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in water. It will discolor over a couple of days. So it will look a little bit like a different color, but it's always still good and fresh when you cook it.
Thank you.
So again, you'll just, once it's all spread out, you'll make sure it's well floured, and then you'll just sort of put it together in a container, whether plastic or glass. That's all.
Yes.
And so it won't stick then.
Nope. And even a plastic bag, if you have a Ziploc bag or something, it's just fine. So, and feel free to move at, again, your pace. These are a fair amount of noodles to cut. Or for time's sake, just cut part of them and keep the rest until after we share a meal together. That would be a possibility too, if you're finding that you have too much.
So for Pam and I, a lot of times what we'll do, because we'll eat a fair amount of pasta, we'll make two of these balls just for one meal. So I'm gonna get started on my second ball, and then we can throw it into the water, and it cooks really quickly. So please go at your own pace. It's a great, wonderful.
Oh,
Wow. Benjamin, that's awesome.
That is wonderful. I love how long it is. That one's a great one for slurping.
Yeah, he did it with our pasta machine. So
nice.
Is it cooked or uncooked right now?
Uncooked.
Okay, so it's uncooked.
And it's
right now.
holding together really well. Is that the one without the eggs?
This is the one with the eggs. We do the other one
nice.
without the eggs just now then, yeah.
Wonderful.
How is it different for you guys? Have you made it with eggs before, or is this the first time with eggs?
I think we did it once with eggs, and then we started to do it without. So we have never done at the same time with and without eggs. So this will be a good experience to have a discerning mind and a discerning taste.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think you guys are going to win the longest noodle award, though.
Yeah.
And I've got a question.
Yes, Manisha.
The noodles that you cut, do they need to be covered? Would they dry up?
No, we'll be moving quickly enough. You could if you want to, but normally if you were doing this and you weren't doing the pauses that we're doing, this whole meal could be done within an hour, I would say, maybe even, about an hour.
Okay, thank you.
Just enjoying taking our time today, but so it will be no harm to cover them, but it's not necessary.
And do you layer them or you just sort of spread them out as much as you can?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just put mine in a pile, the ones that I cut. I just
Okay, so you don't worry about them getting smushed together.
No. And obviously, if we're giving them as a gift, we're paying more attention to the appearance, but we're looking at this for our meal.
And Tomas and Perry, did you just use flour and water then?
Yeah,
This is with eggs, and this is without eggs.
Huh. And so without eggs, it was just flour and water.
Yeah. So what I did, I used it what is called, I think in Italy, semola di grano duro. In German, it's called Hartweizengrieß.
Right.
And I put basically half of this type of flour. I put, let's say, 200 grams of that flour, and then I put half of it with almost boiling water, and then I'm kneading that. So really put very hot water onto that, and then also kneading that instead of the eggs. Yeah?
So it's 100% semolina then. I mean, I assume it's semolina flour, which is yeah. But it's 100% of that, and so it's not super grainy.
No, when you use this almost boiling water, it gets really smooth when you knead it.
South Tyrol.
Yes. And Claudia, how are your noodles coming out? Do you have a little bit of a different blend? Are they heavy for you?
Really nice. I mean, it's about 2/3, maybe half to 2/3 white, and then the other half was the whole wheat spelt and the semolina. And yeah, it's working. It's really working nicely.
So you feel that was a good combination.
Yeah, and it smells good, so it should taste really good.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm sure.
Good. And what about you, Phyllis? You've got the brown rice flour. How is yours turning out?
They seem kind of crumbly, but that's gluten-free things often are.
Are they?
Yeah. Like
Let's
thin
see, can you show us? I'm wondering if cutting them a little thicker for you might not be a bad idea. Like,
I think that probably would have been a smart thing to do.
let's see.
Let's see.
Oh, that's good.
That looks okay.
You just have to be really gentle with them.
Yeah, they're very delicate.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they look great. And maybe, yes, a little thicker. They will cook quickly regardless. And that again is just the attention and responsiveness when we're cooking, because, you know, even when we've made something many times and we're following a prescriptive recipe, things change and shift just like they do in life. And we have to find our ways to respond and sometimes save our dinner, right? So our dinner depends on our mindful ability to respond appropriately. And yeah, but your dough looks beautiful. It looks really nice. Yeah. And those, is that patties are looking good.
My
Beautiful.
first noodles came out fairly thick. So I rolled it out much, much thinner. So this is my.
Yep. And Patty, we're cutting ours about half of that size.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to, because there's all sorts of different noodles, but I just wanted to let you know where I think about half that is ours. It'll probably just take another 30 more seconds to cook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or even smaller.
You can if you want, but certainly do what's best. Like look at, I don't know if you can tell ours.
Okay.
See
Oh,
the
okay.
thickness?
All right. Thanks.
I forgot to say though, that anybody who's going to be enjoying this that lives in your house that didn't help cook probably has to clean the mess. Mindfully. We're making a mindful.
I'm glad I was part of the cooking.
Yeah. Mhm.
I certainly have to practice the cutting, you know, when you go with a knife in. It looks so easy, but I have to do them all singly.
Yes.
Yeah, me
Yeah. To pick it up.
Wow, look at that.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
That's where the machine is really nice.
Yes. Yeah.
And these are the ones with
Fair.
not the ones without eggs.
Oh, wow. Look at that. And you guys rolled it out nice and long.
It's so uniform.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's it too, taking a minute to, again, connect to the dough, smelling the dough. It's going to change quite a bit when we cook it. You guys are all doing a really nice job. This is
We're
beautiful.
getting ready to be able to put this in. So
Yes.
prepare everybody.
So should we unravel each roll then? So that they,
Yeah, I unravel them so that they don't go into the water that way. So put it on the knife and I just kind of fling it with my hands a little bit, my fingers, so that they start coming apart. And if you have to take them off and do them one at a time, that's fine. It's a little bit of a tricky situation. Sometimes if you don't fold it quite right, it doesn't come off the knife too easily. And sometimes you just have to pull it apart with your hands.
And we make this loose pile.
once again, I didn't.
I think if you have to do it with your hands, they're even more mindful.
Exactly.
Yes. Really, it's about being, very gentle as well. And again, seeing what's showing up in the noodles and how sturdy they are. And some are thicker than others. And so we cook ours for 3 minutes, and we do the taste test. Some people might feel or see that they need 4, and there's an art in cooking noodles as well. Rose, how are yours coming out? I see you. Are you guys happy with the way they're coming out? Well, you know what would be a mindful thing to do is boil some water and taste test the difference between ones you just showed us, because once Andy and I started making our own pasta, we don't even want store-bought pasta anymore.
Yeah.
That's the good news and the bad news.
Well, not always convenient to spend this much time making your own noodles, but it is rewarding at the end.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
it's wonderful.
Yeah, this is a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it's really exciting to learn how to do this.
All right. Well, we are getting ready to start putting it in the water. So if you want, I'm going to save my other two ones just because this is enough for me to eat, Pam and I to eat today right now. And the other ones, when we're done eating, then I'll finish the rest of them.
How does that sound to everyone? Does everybody have enough for their right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we then save it to the side and we can do this our own after we finish together. So we can make sure if we've turned down our water, let's bring it back to boiling. And let's just take a moment.
Yes.
You can see mine is a bowl. I have a bowl about so big full of raw noodles now.
Yeah, big bowl.
And if you're still cutting, maybe turning up your water and then returning to the cutting just to get the water ready to receive the pasta. And we want a roaring boil. And Andy's got our bowl of very loose noodles.
Beautiful.
Yeah, really. Ooh.
That will be ready to go in.
All right.
And again, those of us that are waiting can stir our pesto. And watch our water boil. Listen to the changes in the sounds as the water comes to a boil.
You're going to want to get a colander ready.
Mm-hmm. If your water is already boiling, you can put in your pasta, put it in loosely, and Andy will show you on ours too, making sure that you're stirring it gently and that you're keeping the noodles apart from sticking. You're going to want to stir gently throughout the process just to make sure that the noodles don't stick. Most of the time, these types of noodles don't. We've switched to Andy's camera here. Is our water boiling, Andy?
It's starting to.
Okay, so he's
Just
going to,
need one more minute.
then he'll add our noodles.
Pam, do you put any oil in the water to keep it?
No, we don't for this.
Okay.
Just salt.
Yes.
So I'm going to start putting the noodles in the water and then stir it.
So as you can see, he's holding these, letting them kind of go down individually,
Yes.
gently picking them up, and then just slowly adding them in, sprinkling them in the water. Carefully,
Trying to keep them separated.
trying to keep them separated.
Give it a little stir. Gentle stir. And they only need about 3 to 5 minutes.
Well, so taking attention to the time, once you put them in, and start, and we'll check them after 3 minutes. If you have a thicker noodle, again, it'll be a little bit more. Everything's looking good, guys. Lovely, lovely. Some of us will be enjoying this for breakfast, late lunch, others a late dinner.
And for some, nearly a midnight feast.
Life would not be the same, Giddy, without a midnight feast every now and then, would it? This is so wonderful to share this with you. Okay, and I'm going to head to the other camera because I am the official mindful pasta tester in my family.
Wellness or doneness? Doneness?
I'm sorry, was there a question?
Oh, you're just specifically looking at the noodles now for wellness, for doneness, for.
Yes, so it's about 3 minutes, Rose, and so I'm going to go in. I'm going to actually pull one out, and I'm going to taste it. It's been in long enough to taste it, and so starting at 3 minutes, you want it to be to your consistency that you like. We like ours a little al dente, so they've got a little bit of firmness to them, but not. They're very soft and easy to chew. Okay. And again, make sure that you're stirring gently while they're cooking.
They just automatically come to the top.
So we're going to taste these now. I'm going to see. And mine needs another minute. Once they start to get done, they can cook very quickly. But as I taste mine, I'm paying attention, and I want it to be very soft, not mushy, having some body, but still very soft and no effort to having to chew these noodles. So continuing to stir them to make sure that there's no sticking. I use chopsticks to get them out, which makes it a little more challenging and fun.
I think mine are ready, so I
strain them.
Yeah, you can strain them. Put them in your bowl.
Right. Okay. I'm putting more.
Well, I'm not. No, put it up. Put it a little louder. I'm sorry. Oh, hi.
Hi there.
How are you?
Oh, good.
It was, I didn't do the pasta, but I did the pesto. And I'll do the pasta later because it's a little early.
Yes, it is early. What takes you to Indiana?
I live partly in Indiana and partly in Buenos Aires. So I'm here for 3 weeks to get my vaccine.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, welcome. Hopefully the weather is a little different though, right? You're going from summer to winter.
No, actually, I am in Buenos Aires, in Indiana right now. So
okay.
It's cold here.
Yes. Coming from Buenos Aires, yes. How is everybody's pesto or pasta going? Are we straining?
Yeah.
Go, Giddy. Nice. Okay.
Bye. Thank you. I need to go.
Thank you.
Bye.
So, and then a bit pesto and the
Yes.
cheese.
So dress it as much as you like. And
You, sweetie,
yes.
you can show them.
I tend to like a little bit more pesto. So I'm going to put a little bit more. And we are going to do a little tape. Carrie's going to lead us through a moment of silence before we eat. But those of us who are making our bowls can just make our bowls and get them ready.
And each bowl here.
And I like to put about 4 big spoons of pesto. In America, they're the teaspoons or the tablespoons. And then I
Can put the cheese. You put the cheese
right on top. So
okay.
if you can see my bowl, I've got the pasta, I've got the pesto, and then you stir it in and mix it really well together. For those, and then so I'll put probably 1/4 of a cup of cheese on my. Just dress it. And the cheese, our cheese has a fair amount of salt, but if you need more salt, you can certainly, after you mix it and mix the flavors, add salt to your tasting.
Some people like capers. If you like capers or olives on top, you can put a little garnish of other types of things that you like on your pasta.
Some people artichokes. Yep, and again, put the amount of pasta you like, the pasta and also the pesto. Pesto should cover, when you stir it in, it should cover the noodles. All of them should be covered lightly. It's meant to be a part of every taste. And the other thing to say is that, again, this being a traditional Sicilian recipe, the people in Sicily live very simply, and their recipes reflect, yes, that's beautiful, what's in your garden. And so they're not complex. They don't throw a lot of different things in their pastas like we might want to add, like sauteed vegetables, or some people like pine nuts or different spices. The intention of this is really to celebrate the simplicity and to celebrate all that goes into the food, the joy of growing your own food, for them having a climate that you can grow food in, the ability to gather together, to prepare food, to come together, to enjoy food. It's all of those things that are most important there versus the complexities of some of the different tastes. That's beautiful.
Wonderful.
That's beautiful. Gorgeous. Ah.
Very nice.
Show her yours.
On the table. No. It's on the table.
Oh, yes.
That looks great.
Oh, I think everybody's sharing there.
Thank you.
And again, add as much cheese, for variation. I'm part Greek and I love adding a little bit of feta cheese sometimes to this. So are we tasting before? Perry, did you want us to taste first, or did you want us to meditate first, or do we want to do a meditation after now?
I think we could do just 1 minute of silence.
Okay.
So I would ring the bowl, and then we could connect again with all our senses. Being really fully in with the moment, and then we could start tasting. Okay?
Okay.
Bon appetit, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Bon appetit. Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And again, as you're eating, pay attention and see, do I have enough pesto? Do I have enough cheese? Make your dish just as you like. And that's just a little attention and a lot of love. We want to hear the reports on how the different noodles came out.
can't wait to try it.
That's beautiful, Rose. Looks wonderful. You've got
Yes.
a nice setup there.
Yes, thank you. Just in the kitchen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You notice like the hand cut pastas, they'll get a little wavy. They have like a waviness look to it. And I've learned to really appreciate that.
And I'm noticing mine doesn't have enough salt, so feel free to add. Yep, add more.
Noodles have an amazing texture, and they're really good.
Yeah.
Good. So
They came out okay.
They did.
Oh, good.
I'm shocked.
yeah. So you like the taste? I mean, do you notice a big change in the fresh pasta versus
I do.
like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The texture is totally different, and it's it's very delicious.
Good.
Very delicious. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is the pesto being mostly parsley, is you can see that some of that bitterness has subsided a little bit when you put it on the pasta. Is hopefully it's to everyone's pleasing. It's a little different,
It's
maybe a little
different.
different pesto than people are used to.
Also, put our leftovers in a jar. Like I said, we put it in the refrigerator, and it lasts. It lasts about a month. Like I said, for dipping breads, we put it on our pizzas. Trying to think of anything else we do with it, really, probably just that and pasta.
Mm-hmm.
The noodles are so much tastier than store-bought. Really, they're so robust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Pam and Andy, cheers to the cooks.
Thank you so much. How did everybody? Yes. Cheers. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure to be part of this.
And maybe next time we can all do this together in Sicily. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Pam and Andy. It was such a delicious journey. Mindfully cooking together with you and listening to all the stories from your families, and really, experiencing making the fresh pasta really all by hand, with all the cutting and everything. So we really enjoyed it, and we are very grateful for having you here with us and sharing your recipe with us. Thank you so much.
We thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Pam and Andy, thank you so much. And cheers.
Cheers to you.
Chin
Cheers
chin.
to you. What do you think, guys? How does the pasta taste for you? Good?
We have
Delicious.
we will eat a little bit now because it's rather late, but we will taste it. The second dinner today.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, that will be lovely. That will be
Yeah, but the other part we will eat tomorrow or the next day.
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful.
That's perfect. Manisha, how is yours?
It's good. I'm loving it. It's beautiful.
Mm. Oh, good.
For breakfast.
Yes, I'm having it for breakfast.
Yes. And again, feel free to add more pesto if it's not flavorful enough. I mean, it's that being responsive to your tastes, what you like. There are so many different features that can be added. And so it's really being with the bowl, being with
Can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
The uncooked pasta, is it meant to be a bit sticky? The cooked one, sorry, the cooked pasta.
The
Once
cooked
you-
pasta? It's
Yes.
a little sticky. Yeah, there's
Sticky,
maybe
sticky.
there's a little bit more starch maybe than
Yes, yes.
dried pasta.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay.
Pam, you're right. I'll never go back to store-bought. The
You like
flavor. I didn't know pasta has flavor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You've been spoiled, Patty. Mhm. We're getting spoiled. And it's a simple recipe, right? And this is certainly, we do recommend checking out the Pasta Grannies on YouTube. They take you on, I think it's about 20 minutes, maybe a half hour,
Yeah, 20
but
minutes.
just beautiful pasta lessons from grandma's kitchens all over Italy. So very well worth your time. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I'm glad you guys came today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That was
so-
great. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. This was really such a wonderful session, and thanks to everybody who cooked along and cooked together. It was so interesting to see all the different processes with each of you, and seeing how you did it differently. But then, yeah, it all came out as a wonderful dish at the end. So this was such a beautiful experience, and also experiencing the connectivity between all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you for providing that too.
Thank you.
Making a journey into the
Thank you.
Mediterranean. So grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Greetings from Saturn. He
Yes.
joined me when I was cooking.
Oh,
He thought I was also cooking for him.
Yes. He's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you so much, yeah, and we wish you a wonderful, lunch, a wonderful evening, or a wonderful morning, and so grateful to be
Ciao.
together.
Ciao, Katze.
Die nächste Katze.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. It's perfect dinner. Wonderful.
Okay.
Good. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thank you.
bye.
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 Thank you, Pam. And fresh pasta is like my favorite in the world.